know how many people I scare away when I open up with that. I am recording this at 5:47 p.m. On April 29th, Monday. I have spent the last 24 hours or so rewatching Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, and Avengers Infinity War. I am about to go see Avengers Endgame on the night of Monday, April 29th. And I figured just kind of on the spur of a moment, I would do a little quicker bonus Kirblog. I do not see myself doing a full month of Mayrvel this year, despite the fact that it is a huge thing for Marvel. But thankfully, it happened to land on the month of May that I'm going to be releasing my Kirblog review of that. That'll be this weekend. But I wanted to put this one out ahead of time. This will probably be going up on, I guess, like Thursday, I don't know, of May 2nd. I'll just pretend, just in case. Nonetheless, yeah, I thought it would be interesting to kind of go back through my thoughts on a lot of these movies. I have actually done individual Kirblog reviews of 3 of the 4 movies that I just rewatched over the past couple of years now, since I moved out to LA. So it's been a long time coming, but yeah, I figured I'd just kind of recount through a bunch of these. And I watched these 4 in particular, and other ones. I've recently rewatched Thor Ragnarok and Spider-Man Homecoming as well, just circumstantially. So, you know, I've had a pretty firm refresher on Phase 3 and you know, just a lot of the key ones that are related to, you know, what's happening in Endgame. And, you know, I've seen every single MCU movie and a lot of the other ancillary stuff as well. So I am firmly prepped, but just figured I'd kind of recount a lot of stuff. I was about a year or so out of college when the first Avengers came out. It would have been, I think, 2012. And I can definitely remember going to see that with a bunch of friends of mine in school at the time. And, school friends, that is not in school. Obviously, I was graduated by that point. Looking back on it, the original Avengers movie is actually still incredibly good to me. I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about it. It had been a long time since I'd even rewatched it. I think I can't even remember how many years it had been. But it's kind of not only just a perfect closer to... you know, to the short round of movies for Phase 1, but it actually holds up on its own very well. It's, you know, I mean, certainly, like, you know, it's a good, as with all of these, it definitely helps, you know, to have seen everything. But even just by itself, I think actually, like, you can still get a pretty fair amount out of it. You know, I think Tony and Iron Man in particular, I think is like, you know, because at least he had the 2 full movies, but all the other ones, like this movie actually works as kind of a decent like introduction for a lot of them. So even if you hadn't seen all the other Phase 1 movies, like it stands up on its own pretty damn well as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, it was a fun ride. Loki makes for you know, a fun first major villain. He was definitely the most interesting of the Phase 1 villains, even though I did like Red Skull, okay, and you know, Ironmonger was not bad, I guess. I barely remember Abomination and Whiplash; they were kind of whatever. But yeah, Loki's such a fun character, and you know, with his army of Power Ranger esque minions given to him by a weird Power Ranger esque movie villain enemy guy, the guy who works for Thanos or whatever, was pretty funny. Still a lot of great moments, you know, puny god with, you know, whipping Loki around was great. Mark Ruffalo, I think, is still kind of the big standout for me. I love the entire main cast of the Avengers, but Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk is just like so weird and goofy and likably awkward in that sense. And yeah, this is a solid one. And even just seeing like the early bits, you can see they were kind of going somewhere. Even the very beginning with Natasha and Bruce and their kind of connection, not a full on relationship necessarily, but just their connection with each other, as well as the kind of feud between the warring mentalities between Tony and Steve, which persisted throughout, and you know, started a little bit more playful in the beginning, and then you know, changed as it continued forward. But it's also got a fairly good tone of like being just serious enough, but not like hyper serious, that it was pretty, even though it was devoid of too much comedy. You know, there's a couple little cute moments mixed in there once in a while, but for the most part, it's pretty grounded, but not to any kind of misbenefits. It went really well for me. I rewatched Ultron for the first time since I saw it way back in, I think it was 2015. It was when it came out, maybe. I remember distinctly doing that Kirblog and leaving the movie having like this kind of. If I haven't listened to that one in a long time, but I remember my initial thought was like, I think this is the movie that made me realize I prefer the individual MCU movies as opposed to the big crossover ones and everything. The Avengers movies where they all come together. Not that I don't enjoy them, but the individual ones are a little better to me in terms of just films and storytelling and everything. Rewatching Ultron again for the first time since then, I definitely enjoyed it. I think more so this time than I did previously. But I still had a lot of the same problems with it I found. One that I wasn't thinking too much about until I saw it on the second viewing, though, was speaking of comedy earlier or like level of seriousness. This one had a little too much comedy to the point where it was like getting a little annoying. I used to follow watching Avengers Assemble, the animated series, for a decent while. I think that at least like the first couple seasons worth, and I remember liking it for what it was. But I also remember a few different friends of mine who were watching it were saying like they felt kind of annoyed that like everybody had this same kind of like sarcastic attitude, like jokey joke, sense of humor kind of thing to them. Which at the time I was like, oh, I don't know about that, and then like. Looking back on it, I mean, I haven't watched that series in a long time, but at least looking at at Ultron in particular, the movie, it's like, oh yeah, this actually had a lot of and weirdly like a lot of like 80-yard humor. Like I could tell they would go back in, and there were certain shots where like here's Captain America like laying on the floor, and he's like really kind of stuff, which is whatever. But then they'd like dub in like. Black Widow being like, excuse me, pardon me, beep beep or whatever, like on the bike, and then like Tony being like, yay, when he opens a door or whatever, and I'm like, what? And like Ultron being kind of charismatic and funny as a character in the way that like his whole sort of disposition was. I didn't so much mind that. I actually felt that like that personality for him was the most genuinely like not like funny, but like amusing. But the problem is, unfortunately, I still found Ultron as a character, like at least the way he was executed in this movie. I don't know like how massively different he is compared to the comics or anything, but I kind of found him to not be a very compelling villain. Like he's entertaining, but like his whole motivation was too like all over the place and like weird and kind of nonsensical, and ultimately wasn't satisfying. What I will say on a positive note, though, again in rewatching this, the final battle sequence with him lifting up the giant slab of Sokovia, I think it is, that whole ending sequence is awesome. Like the scale of that and everything in the big battle, like that stuff was really, really well done, and I liked that sequence a ton. So it went on at a good note, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I immediately wanted to move on to the next movie. So still had problems. I would say thus far it's the weakest of the Avengers movies specifically. Could have been a lot bigger and better than it was. I do love Vision. I personally didn't mind that Quicksilver was kind of a one and done character in this movie. I know that was like kind of a big detriment for people, but that didn't bother me that much. And then having Wanda, Scarlet Witch, carry over, and she's been cool. And and Vision was a great addition, and what they did with him and everything, I liked that a lot. I feel like maybe they could have, I don't know, they could have just dispersed the Ultron and Vision stuff a little bit better, and it could have been a lot more interesting than it was. But it was still fine. I was like, okay, it wasn't like a slog or anything. It wasn't like, how a lot of people feel about Dark World. Although that said, I didn't even hate Dark World, to be honest, when I watched it the one time, though I probably wouldn't rewatch it, so that must tell you something. Nonetheless, Civil War, I know is not an Avengers movie, but I, in a very Kingdom Heartsian way, I kind of consider it to be Avengers 2.5 in a way. I know I said this last time, certainly, but again, I'm just repeating stuff because it's been years since I did this. But one of the things I really, really wanted out of Phase 3 was more sort of like crossover movies with multiple characters. So like, we had Thor Ragnarok was Thor and the Hulk, and then Civil War was Iron Man and Captain America, which I was very happy about because I really, really wanted that. So that, to begin with, was really appealing to me. And also, of course, Captain America is my favorite of the Avengers, and I love all of his individual movies the most of all of them. So, that was exciting for it to be basically Captain America 3 and also sort of Iron Man 4 in that sense. And I know that it is massively different from the Civil War of the original Marvel comics, in terms of the superhero rights contract document, Sokovia Accords, as they call it in this case. But I really did like the two different sides, that sort of gimmick with the 6 or 7 characters on each opposing viewpoints, and I actually had forgotten about I remember that Baron Zemo was this interpretation of the character Zemo was the villain of this one, but I had forgotten exactly how everything went down and what his whole sort of evil plot was and everything. But he was a pretty effective kind of anti-villain in a sense for this one, and how he sort of turns everybody apart, he tears everybody apart and turns them against each other. There we go. English, I can speak it. A lot of great moments in this, and great introductions for other Phase 3 characters, where this was the first movie that Black Panther and the MCU version of Spider-Man show up in, which was incredibly clever, and in that it was, I guess, a little bit less risky to have them just or rather not so much risky, but they hyped them up first in this bigger movie and then set up what came to pass. I guess especially for Black Panther, because needing to hype up these other characters ahead of time, and Spider-Man, it was I guess he kind of needed it for a different reason, because it's it's Spider-Man 6 at this point, technically for a lot of people, and but and of course Black Panther, much like all these other Marvel movie characters, once we go to see these MCU movies, then we fall in love with them, and now we want lots of stuff with them. So it's the same thing for me with Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and everybody else. So I figured it was going to be the same thing with Black Panther, and it ended up being the same thing with Captain Marvel as well. Although, by the way, side note, I think I even said this on one of the Anime April Kirblog I just did, I was going to do a review of Captain Marvel, but honestly, I don't really have that much to say about it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it about as much as I am par for the course with a lot of the other Marvel movies, but truth be told, I don't really remember that much of my immediate thoughts, which is the reason why I'm going to try and actually, if I can, if I'm not completely exhausted when I get back from it, I'm going to try to record my thoughts on Infinity War right after, on Endgame right after I get back from it. I think I did that with Infinity War when I got back from doing that one. I think I either immediately after or the next day I recorded my thoughts on it, because I've been trying to do that with a lot of these movie Kirblogs, just to have the thoughts as fresh in my mind as I possibly can, But nonetheless, yeah, Civil War, I don't think it was on my top 5 favorite Marvel movies from last time, but it's definitely it's among my favorites. It's so well done. It's so good. It's such a great balance of all the main characters and everything. And again, Cap is my favorite. Iron Man's probably a pretty close second, I think, overall. And so a lot of fun with that one. And then, of course, Infinity War, which I just got through watching right before I started recording this. And this is actually it was the third time I'd watched it, because the second time was on a plane ride, I think back from when I was away for the holidays. And I watched it subtitled because I didn't have any headphones, so I couldn't hear any sound, but I just remembered everything. So this was my second time watching it with sound. But and I'm glad I did, because there were little things, little subtle things about some of the stuff that happens with each of the characters that I actually had forgotten. Which is weird, because I saw it once a quarter, more or less. But still, I realized I think I saw it almost once every sort of half of the year within this time, and now I'm seeing it again. But yeah, I'm glad I got reminded on everything. And another one that's fantastic. I think it's even it's bigger and better in scale. I think that the thing is, the original Avengers, I think gets the most amount of the whole, like, we have to come together and work together kind of like it felt okay. Because this, I know I'm remembering, one of the other things I always complained about is I felt that the Avengers movies tend to be a little bit more about just like, the spectacle of like everybody comes together and they fight back against a big greater enemy, and like that's the whole point of it, and there's not really much of like a message or like a moral or anything, compared to the individual Marvel movies, which tend to have better messages. The original Avengers, I think, does, in terms of everybody getting over their crap and working together. Ultron kind of did, but it felt too like all over the place, and it was trying to, but I felt it didn't like land for me as well. And then Civil War, I mean, technically, again, not an Avengers movie, but with that many characters to balance, I think it could be hard sometimes, but it did. And I think that just having the opposing forces between Cap and Iron Man and their factions and everything worked really well. And, and especially with, I think, Cap kind of being at like the main focus of it, and his whole struggle with Bucky and the, moral balance of like, signing the Sokovia Accords or not, and et cetera, worked really well. Infinity War, I think, is just like kind of pure spectacle. But because, as far as I can understand, originally it was intended to be just part one of a greater movie. So like, I feel like I can't, I mean, I gave my full thoughts on it, and, but I think my greater thoughts on the story as a whole of both this and Endgame will come after seeing Endgame, of course. But at least as far as just like the pure, spectacle and entertainment value of Infinity War, it's really cool, balances all the characters out well. And actually, and rewatching it like virtually right after Ultron, handles its comedy way better, because the comedy is basically all executed through the Guardians and their interactions with the others. Thor coming right off of the, Ragnarok, especially, where he got to be at kind of his comedic peak. Not that he's not been funny before, but then his interactions with them, and then Star-Lord and Tony's interactions as well worked really well. So that kept the comedy stuff like contained in a way that was sensible and wasn't interfering too much with the really, really serious stuff, of which there is a lot of really dark, serious stuff in Infinity War. So yeah, but, and actually on that same note, I know I probably said this before, I definitely did. 'Cause I remember, I think I even did like a Kirblog about like, supernatural or superhero type characters doing, normal things. I remember that, I think that might have even been like one of my early ones that I did like from way back. But, yeah, those moments, when the characters have like a brief second to just like talk with each other, even if it's not like funny, like let's all try to lift up Thor's hammer or whatever, or like, but the stuff like just Tony and Steve talking to each other about their disagreements on, how they should handle moving forward with the Avengers and all that stuff. Just these very human moments. And interestingly enough, I think of the three of them, I think I still actually enjoy Civil War the most, just because of the very human kind of problem that it deals with, and there's the supernatural stuff, but there's not like a universal threat or a global threat. It's just it's a smaller kind of thing that has directly to do with just the Avengers and their human interactions. So on that note, I am really, really, really looking forward to Endgame in that it's got actually a smaller, kind of more focused cast to it, and it's the original. I didn't even put this together until like a little while after Infinity War, I think, but that it's the original 6 Avengers, and then plus the other couple ones that managed to survive the snap. So that in and of itself is going to be interesting. And I think Amy might have said this, but just like, or maybe it's either Amy or Mike said this. Sorry, I'm crediting either or of you, but just the whole idea of like, it's just people on a half decimated Earth, like that in and of itself would make for an interesting movie. So I hope that, with 3 hours, I hope we get to spend like a lot of time on just that, because I'm just really interested to see in like how that's going to go, and the different interactions they're going to have and the things that they're dealing with before they go off to the inevitable, big final take back Thanos kind of thing, or take back the world from Thanos. I'm very tired. I need to get some food and some energy in me so I can last, and I need to make sure that I do not pee. Or I don't have to pee, or I don't pee in my seat, or anything. That's my personal business. Anyway, all right, here's a little bonus Mayrvel Kirblog for you all. I guess by the time that this comes out, this will be posted up, I'll have seen the movie, so I guess you can go ahead and post spoilers in the comments because it won't matter by that point. But expect hopefully this Saturday the the Endgame Kirblog review this Saturday. And then after that, I may do one more Marvel-related Kirblog. I have another idea for it, but it'll depend on if I can get a guest for it or something. We'll see. But otherwise, I'll have other things. I'm going to obviously review Detective Pikachu, and I've got some other things planned for the month. But yeah, so that'll do it for now. But thank you all very much. And I guess let me know in the comments your thoughts on the individual Avengers movies, and I guess the other big crossover, Civil War and otherwise, other ones that that I didn't mention here that you like, big moments of those that were your favorites and things. And if you haven't seen Endgame yet, I guess be careful in the comments. But if you want to post any predictions or anything beforehand and give any thoughts on that or whatever, go for it. But yeah, so thanks a bunch, everybody, and I am prepared to cry a lot tonight. I'm, again, time travel. You're hearing this Thursday. It's Tuesday. I've already seen it, so I'm probably emotionally distraught. But whatever. Anyway, all right, thanks a bunch. I'll catch you all soon, and bye-bye.